Hi, welcome to Between Two Speakers, where we talk to speakers about speaking topics. I'm Marianna Swallow. I'm a professional public speaking coach, and I'm an instructor of business and professional speaking at Loyola University in Chicago.
And I'm Randy Ford. I'm a writer and storytelling strategist. First Story Strategies is my company. And Mayor, I always like when you and I get to talk. Those are always fun. But it's especially fun when we have other people with us here too. And
Yep.
so it's cool to have Bernadette Smith here today too, who's a friend of ours and also the founder and CEO of the Equality Institute. So Bernadette, welcome first of all, and start by
Thank you.
telling us a little bit about the Equality Institute.
Sure. Equality Institute is a diversity and inclusion consulting and training firm. And what we do is we work with organizations to create systems where inclusion is the default, where inclusion is the standard, and so it's therefore more sustainable. So we do some consulting, assessments, lots of training. And I personally am a speaker and trainer, and I also develop e-learnings.
Awesome. So what are the things that, from a speaker's perspective, whether somebody is back speaking live in person again, or right now when we are virtual, either one, what are the things that people as speakers need to be thinking about to make sure that they are being inclusive in their remarks and respectful of their audiences?
That's a great question, and I'm really glad you're asking it because more people should be having this conversation, right? Speakers can have a huge impact. And I think that, there are lots of different dimensions of diversity. So one of the main things to remember is that the world is increasingly diverse. Generation Z and millennials expect you, regardless of whether you are a coworker or a manager or a speaker at a training they attend, they expect you to be inclusive of their diversity. They expect it, and they are increasingly demanding it, and they will go to places where they get it. So it's increasingly important. I mean, just as like a random stat, Generation Z, 31% of Generation Z are identifying as somewhere on the LGBTQ plus spectrum, just to give you a sense of the types of numbers we're seeing. And then also we're seeing about half of them as people of color. So it certainly is a really diverse generation, and they're looking for it. So there's things like that, but there's also being mindful of different native languages, different differences in ability. So whether or not someone has hearing impairment, things like that are all considerations. And there are ways to, and different learning styles, and whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, lots of different types of considerations. And as someone who's developing a training or putting together a curriculum, in order to have maximum impact, you have to try to touch all of those individual people, right? And so really try to have different ways of engaging and including those different folks so your message is sticky. If you're a speaker or a trainer and your message doesn't stick or resonate because you're accidentally excluding someone, well, then you're not able to save the world.
Bernadette,
not able to change the world.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Those are great points because I like that when you brought up diversity, you pointed out it's not just, I think people hear diversity and they think, oh, races, but it's not just that. It is things like learning style. And I see this all over in corporate environments, academia, where someone might just stand and deliver a lecture. And I'm going to go on record. I felt this way my whole life. Standing and talking for a half hour or an hour, that is the most boring thing and the most boring way to learn. And someone who's not an auditory learner is not going to learn that way.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, there are different types of learning styles, and you also have to think about how is your audience going to buy in to what it is you're saying. Are they people that buy in because of the facts? Are they people that buy in because of emotion? Right? Like how do you establish trust with your audience? Right? And trust is an incredible foundation for inclusion.
I like that you said that. So would that be a good way to prepare, is thinking about how does my audience buy in?
Absolutely. I mean, if you know that you're speaking to an association that is focused on, the finance industry, well, then maybe you go more heavy with data, right? And that's how you get buy-in. But also, if you think about it, behavior change is really triggered by emotion. People don't really want to change their behavior unless they feel the need and have an
Hmm.
emotional response to want to change that behavior. So when I'm crafting a speech or when I'm putting together a curriculum, I'm always looking for what are the emotions I can trigger that is going to create real change. And powerful emotional triggers can be empathy, it can be a fear of loss, it can be the potential reward. A powerful emotional trigger that I like to use is embarrassment. Have you ever embarrassed yourself in front of a client, right?
Meaning that you don't, as the speaker,
Really powerful.
you don't go embarrass them, but you ask about something like that.
Yeah. Well, and I also tell my own stories. I tell stories about putting my own foot in my mouth and embarrassing myself, right? And people can really relate to that.
Hmm.
Plus, it's funny.
Right.
And that's another way to engage people. So all of those are factors that I'm considering when crafting a speech. And that's not even talking about like true diversity. I mean, that's just sort of just my own practice for speechcraft.
Hmm.
What are some of those things you mentioned being putting your foot in your mouth accidentally? What are some of those things? And maybe it's people who are detached from Gen Z, and so they maybe not may not be aware of all of the things that are on people's minds or on people's hearts. What are some of the things that people may accidentally do as presenters unintentionally that causes a problem connecting with their audience?
Sure. Well, they can start their presentation by saying, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen," right? Or they could say, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between." Or they could just say, "Good afternoon," right? But when you say, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen," you're automatically assuming the genders of the people in the audience. And so you can lose people right off the bat just by doing something as simple as that. Or by saying, "Hey guys, it's great to be here," right? And you're losing people that way. So those are like, it's so common to use that type of language. So it really does require being a little bit more thoughtful about how you connect with people right off the bat. And I know for folks who are not Gen Z or they're not millennials, I'm Gen X. So, this is an adjustment for me too. I still sometimes catch myself saying, "Hey guys." But I am very, I'm, I catch myself at the end of the day, I catch myself. And so it's definitely for older folks and getting older speakers, Gen X and older, to understand this stuff. It's about really challenging them. How much do you really want to connect to your audience? Like getting them to buy in. You have to get them to buy into it. So it's like training the trainer in a sense. That makes sense?
That does. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share?
I think that it's really important to ask people to invite people to share their pronouns. When I'm conducting a Zoom meeting, I always edit my name to add my pronouns to my last name. And you can actually set that up as part of your profile. And I think you can do it in a few of the other teleconferencing softwares as well. For in-person events, I always encourage my clients to ask for pronouns, invite people to share their pronouns on their registration so that that can be printed on their name badges. And not just pronouns, but for a big conference, invite people to share other parts of their identity. At the registration booth, have stickers or buttons that allow people to say things like introvert or vegetarian or theater geek or whatever it happens to be, because there are so many different ways people can connect, people can identify. And having those types of buttons and stickers at registration for in-person events, I think really allows people to be creative, B, feel like they have the ability to express themselves, and C, find ways they can connect with others.
That's a nice icebreaker when you can say something other than just, Ms. Mayor Swallow or whatever. Like, I like the idea of
Yeah,
having vegetarian, theater fan, whatever, theater geek.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's just another way people can have a conversation starter. It's not always easy when there's like 10,000 people at an event. It's like, whoa, all right, gotta find a way to connect, right? It helps to have that type of you know content
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and you're really making me miss those days when we could be at 10,000 person events.
We will get back there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Bernadette, for being here.
It's great to connect with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us today.
Take care.
been Between Two Speakers. I'm Randy Ford.
And I'm Mare Swallow. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.